Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is a deck tech video for my Kaima the Fractured Calm deck for the changes that I made going into the second week of the Jake and Joel Magic Commander League. The budget went up from $100 to $150. Last week I showed you the initial deck. This week I'm going to show you the changes that I made with the $50 budget and just tweaks that I thought were appropriate. But before that, I have another new surprise. I'm going to roll out. Look at that, baby. That is the Springleaf Avenger in all his glory. Moving on. So, my commander is Kaima the Fractured Calm, which hopefully you remember. If not, links to the past video are down in the description. The cards that I decided to take out, I'm just going to have going up on screen. I'm not going to really talk much about them. So the way the deck performed, even with the changes that I made, was unfortunately not very well, mainly because of poor draws, which happens, and notably also a few misplays on my part regarding the Shroud ability and Ulvenwald tracker. So some of it was my fault, some of it was well out of my control, but I still had some good plays. I still made an impact on the game overall, so can't be too mad. So, now the new cards. As I said last week, I was definitely going to be throwing in Orabrask the Hidden. I didn't see any of these cards in the game, by the way, so all of these changes that I made, I'm pretty much not going to be able to talk much about the impact that they made or how they changed how the deck plays or anything like that because I didn't actually see them. I will, however, I am going to make Kaima a part of my regular commander decks that I play with my buddies. So I will probably make an official Kaima deck tech of how I would run the deck normally without any budget constraints. But Orabrask the Hidden I said I was going to add no matter what, and that's because especially in a Goad model, which they're making an evergreen mechanic now, by the way, which makes me very happy. Orabrask making your opponent's creatures come into play tapped is huge because you goad your opponent's creatures, they swing and get out of your way, but the possibility was always there for your opponents to play new creatures, which were then just there in your way. So, Orabrask says no to that, as well as giving your creatures haste. Secondly, Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. One of the things I discussed last week was whether or not I would go into a more, like, the door was still pretty much open to either go wide, focus on going big, the strategy was still kind of forming. And for the second version of this deck, I decided to go focus on going bigger with Kaima. And so Kazul makes for an excellent defensive card. He just sits there and produces 3/3 ogres for you. In support of going big and defensive, I included Crawl Space. No more than 2 creatures can attack you each combat. Kaima, while he does goad, does not goad a ton. He still leaves himself pretty open. I guess he's what you might call a sort of balanced version of Goad. So of course, you have to do anything you can to tip the balance back in your direction. Along those lines, along that line, I also included Fault Line. Again, it's an instant, deals X damage to each creature without flying and each player. You need board wipes, and this was one that ideally Kaima could get out of the way of and would still impact the table. Disrupt Decorum, I decided to lean more into the goad, so Disrupt Decorum was the way to go. Tamiyo's Safekeeping. This is a new card. I mean, it'll be difficult to not slot into any green deck just about, depending on the strategy, but target permanent you control gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. You gain 2 life. So you're always looking for single target protection, and this one is just about one of the best out there. It gets hexproof and indestructible. So whether you need to fend off against a board wipe or direct target, this will take care of both. Even if it was gonna be target is exiled, and it hits any permanent, which is amazing. So even if instead of going directly after your creature, they wanted to maybe hit the Crawl Space or one of your other enchantments, Tamiyo's Safekeeping would keep it safe, and you gain 2 life. One of the removals that I made was the Skin Invasion, which is the enchantment that then became a creature. and I decided to take it out for escape velocity. I did this particularly because the mana cost was the same, 1 red, easy to play, and it also has the escape, which is also pretty small cost. 1 red, and you exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. So it was an enchantment with recursion that also had a very low cost, so I thought it was worth taking the Skin Invasion out for escape velocity. Now, in going big and leaning more into Goad, I decided to go with Citadel of Pain as one of the cards that I added in. One of the things that I talked about in the first video was that as a defensive Goad player, making your opponents decide if they're going to play at instant speed while you're over here doing pretty much just stuff on your turn is a big advantage to have. Which is why I also went with Total War, especially in a deck like Kaima, where typically you are only goading 1, maybe 2 creatures on each opponent's field, making all of their creatures attack, the ones that, if they weren't brought out this turn at least, making all of them attack or get destroyed, similarly to Citadel of Pain, makes you decide, all right, are you going to attack and possibly pay, or are you going to not attack and pay anyway? So I think this is a really fun card, especially in Kaima, who does single target goads. So the goaded creature forces just about every other creature on your opponent's board to attack or be destroyed. Also, to support the going big with Kaima, I decided to include Kedis, Emberclaw Familiar. While you rely on goad mostly to have your opponents take each other out, having something like Kedis out when you're going big and going big with 1 creature, you don't have to spell it out too much. He helps you by eliminating 1 person, hopefully eliminate multiple people at the table. One of my more last-minute additions was Tangarth First Mate. 4 for a 5/5, of course, is incredible. Can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. And his second ability can be a little confusing, especially when you're communicating with people just over webcams. But whenever an opponent attacks with 1 or more creatures, if Tangarth is tapped, you may have that opponent gain control of Tangarth until end of combat. If you do, you choose a player or planeswalker that opponent is attacking. Tangarth is attacking that player or planeswalker. So, similar to the whole reason that you're goading, Tangarth is there to help you get value out of the fact that your opponents are goaded, and just helping you deal more damage around the board without you actually having to be the one doing it. And finally, my final inclusion was Elephant Grass. I took this out. I took Song of Serenity out in favor of Elephant Grass because I was figuring that Song of Serenity was something I would use more mid to late game anyway, to lock down creatures that my opponents had that were enchanted. And I felt like Elephant Grass late game, 1, sort of filled the same role, and 2, I'd probably have enough mana and it would be late enough in the game that that 1, I'd be able to keep it around for however many turns were left in the game, and that, it also likely wouldn't have to be around for more than 2 or 3 turns. So these were the additions I made. I'm pretty happy with all of them, even though I saw none of them. Going into an actual final build of the deck that I ran regularly, I would definitely include things like Urabrask, possibly Elephant Grass, definitely Total War, Tamiyo's Safekeeping. So there's a lot here that not only has value on a budget, but I think also carries over into if you were going to play casually. So there's the second week of edits that I made. As with last week, next week, I will be revealing what changes I made for the third week, where the budget goes up to $200. Again, thank you for watching, have a good day, etc., and so on.